The air hung thick with smoke and dust, the acrid scent of gunpowder clawing at every breath. Warsaw's streets were littered with rubble and overturned wagons, the cries of civilians echoing against the shattered walls. In the dimly lit Führer headquarters in Berlin, Adolf Hitler stood by the massive map table, his face shadowed, jaw tight. Poland had fallen. But what now? According to historical records, Hitler's mind was already racing, plotting the next move in a war that had only just begun. The world would soon discover that victory in Poland was not an end, it was a spark for a far darker conflagration.
The invasion of Poland, launched on September 1, 1939, had been swift and brutal. Blitzkrieg tactics, a fusion of armored divisions, dive bombers, and rapid infantry, tore through the Polish defenses. Cities crumbled, railways were captured, and communication lines severed. German propaganda hailed it as a triumph of efficiency and strength, but in the quiet corridors of power, a far more complex decision loomed. Hitler's strategy had always been aggressive, but Poland's fall now posed a question: what next? Would Germany consolidate its new eastern territories or press further into Europe before Britain and France could fully react? According to historical records, the Führer was already weighing the implications for his army, his allies, and his ambitions. Every officer in the Wehrmacht could feel the tension. In Berlin, smoke from coal fires mingled with the crisp autumn air, the city's streets still carrying the nervous energy of a nation at war. Meanwhile, in occupied Warsaw, Polish soldiers and civilians alike faced the grim reality of defeat. Some sought to flee eastward, others tried to organize pockets of resistance. Families huddled in cellars, listening to the distant boom of artillery. The sense of panic was palpable, and the scent of fear was everywhere, mingling with burning timber, wet earth, and the iron tang of blood.
Berlin, September 1939, Hitler's headquarters. The room was quiet except for the scratching of pens and the shuffling of maps. Hitler, pale and intense, examined reports from his generals. Wilhelm Keitel, chief of the OKW, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, leaned forward. "The Polish resistance is collapsing," he said. "We control the border crossings and most major cities. Casualties are minimal compared to expectations." Hitler's eyes narrowed. "Good," he muttered, according to historical records. "But we cannot pause. The West remains untested. France will not sit idle forever." Jodl, standing nearby, added, "Our forces are ready for further operations. The Luftwaffe remains strong, and the panzer divisions can redeploy within days." Hitler leaned back, a shadow falling across his face. He thought not just of military logistics, but also of ideology. According to historical records, Hitler knew Britain and France had already pledged support to Poland, and he feared their eventual retaliation.
The soldier's perspective. In the fields east of Warsaw, German infantry advanced cautiously. Smoke and dust obscured the horizon, with occasional flashes of artillery fire lighting the dusky sky. Private Friedrich Weber, a young soldier of the 10th Infantry Division, described the scene in letters later preserved in archives. "The air was heavy with the stench of gunpowder. Men moved like ghosts, eyes wide, hands trembling. We had won, but the cost weighed on every step. I could hear Polish cries in the distance, but the officers urged silence. The city lay in ruins, and I wondered what the Führer would demand next." Meanwhile, Polish officers attempted to regroup remnants of their forces. In the forests near Białystok, Janusz Grabowski wrote in his diary, "We are scattered, disorganized, yet the spirit of resistance burns. If only we could hold a few more days, perhaps the Allies would act. The tension was minute to minute. German soldiers feared ambushes. Polish civilians feared the indiscriminate wrath of occupation. Smoke from burning villages mingled with autumn fog, the sunlight weakly filtering through a gray haze. Each moment was a question. Would the next order bring victory or slaughter?
Diplomatic tensions and Hitler's strategic calculus. On September 17, 1939, the Red Army invaded from the east, completing the partition of Poland. Hitler had anticipated Stalin's involvement, and according to historical records, he regarded it with a mixture of pragmatism and cautious approval. Poland's destruction removed a buffer, opening avenues for further expansion. But it also complicated diplomacy. Britain and France had issued warnings. Hitler's advisors debated whether to fortify gains or strike further west. According to Joseph Goebbels' diary, the Führer is restless. Poland is gone, yet his gaze is already on France and the Low Countries. He walks the room like a caged tiger, muttering about the need for speed and resolve. Hitler's decision-making process now turned toward the West. Would he provoke Britain and France immediately or consolidate the East first? He convened his generals in a tense war council. "We will not wait. France must be forced to attention before winter," he reportedly said. The officers nodded silently, aware that the coming months would test not just their strategy, but the very fabric of Europe. By late September, Hitler had concluded that Germany must act swiftly. According to historical records, he approved the planning of what would become the invasion of France, Belgium, and the Low Countries, the Manstein Plan in embryo. The German military machine shifted, divisions were reassigned, Luftwaffe units repositioned, and supply lines reorganized. Berlin itself seemed to vibrate with the fevered energy of preparation. Back in Warsaw, remnants of Polish resistance were hunted down. Civilians tried to resume normal life amid occupation, but the streets carried the echoes of September artillery. The smell of smoke and dust lingered, a permanent reminder of the rapid collapse. For the Wehrmacht soldiers, the sense of triumph was undercut by the grim realization of the war ahead. Even those elated by victory felt a shadow of dread. Hitler's ambition was far from sated, and the next campaign promised far more intense trials.
Poland's fall reshaped Europe. Germany's eastern border was secure, but the West now loomed. Britain and France honored their alliance pledges, declaring war, initiating the period later called the Phony War. Hitler's rapid victory emboldened him, reinforcing his belief in the supremacy of Blitzkrieg. According to historical records, the decisions taken in the weeks following Poland's defeat directly influenced the strategy for Western Europe in 1940. The human cost was immense. Polish soldiers, civilians, and intelligentsia faced arrests, executions, and deportations. For Germany, the moral weight of victory mixed uneasily with ideological zeal. Hitler's diaries, speeches, and orders reflected an obsession with momentum, speed, and psychological dominance.
As autumn deepened, Berlin's streets were quiet, yet tension crackled beneath the surface. The world had glimpsed the consequences of unchecked ambition. Poland's rapid collapse was more than a military success. It was a harbinger of a continent engulfed in war. Hitler's decisions after September 1939 would set the stage for invasions, occupations, and atrocities that changed history forever. The air in Warsaw remained heavy with ash and smoke. a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. Soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike were bound in the human drama of war, each heartbeat echoing a question: how far would ambition reach, and at what cost? History's answer was already unfolding, minute by minute, city by city, life by life.